Hi everyone. Today we are going to talk about a very interesting principle which is known as curbing the monopolies. This principle is actually supported all over the world because the economies of the nations believe that this very principle is going to help protect their economies from becoming vulnerable. We'll also discuss that how the efforts of Indian government like UPI and ONDC are making use of this very principle, believing that this is going to make our economic structure more robust for the future growth prospects. There's a very famous quote by author Nancy Pearcey which says, competition is a good thing. It forces us to do our best. A monopoly renders people more complacent and satisfied with mediocrity. Now, this quote reflects why every government in the world tries to subdue a monopolistic behavior of any kind in today's world of mega corporations, which discreetly and in the hindsight turn the economies into competitionless zones. Let's understand this with an example. We all know Chevron, ExxonMobil, BP and Marathon Petroleum are the biggest oil companies in the world. But these companies have same parent lineage and were all culminated into one company by the name Standard Oil Company. Now the Standard Oil Company was broken up by the US Supreme Court into 34 smaller companies in the year 1911. Standard Oil before its division was the world's largest petroleum company, and that too was so large that it made its founder John D. Rockefeller the wealthiest American of all time and one of the richest men in the modern history. As a matter of fact, Standard Oil became so big that the American court at the time of breaking it up ruled it as an illegal monopoly, which could hurt the economic system in all the ways they couldn't even imagine at the time. So what does this Standard Oil example tell us about monopolies? The simple answer would be that when corporations evolve into such large behemoths, they might tend to falter and crush the competition spirit of capitalism. The nature of capitalism is competition which benefits all the players involved in its system, be it consumers, manufacturers or distributors. In the absence of competition, monopolies start evolving and exploiting the consumers and thus corroding the economies with their boundless power. Now let's talk about India. India realizes how dangerous this monopolistic market can be, and the efforts the Indian government has been taking to counter this dark force are not presented to us in the manner they actually intended, and which is positive, by the way. Let's understand this more clearly. The government puts the measures such as UPI and ONDC to the general public with the objective of unification of payment platforms or growth of the digitization in the country. Whereas the greater, more camouflaged reason, which personally I think is the ulterior one, is to control the flow of the monopoly stream which was and is existing in the nation. So then what makes a firm a monopoly? The answer lies in a simple illustration of India's most famous mass recruiter, Sabka Masiha, TCS. So TCS, which is one of the most valuable companies in India, holds a market capitalization of more than 8 lakh crores and employs more than 50,000 people. Can this be called a monopoly? No, it is not. Since monopoly does not depend upon the size of an organization, it depends upon how much market dominant position a firm holds to be termed as a monopoly. So we have discussed how monopoly isn't good for any economy. But how do you counter these monopolistic tendencies which begin to elevate? Let's see. Now there are two basic principles that every nation adopts to curb the monopolistic behavior of its entities. The very first principle can be traced back to the illustration of Standard Oil Company, which was actually divided into multiple small firms to control its monopolistic behavior. And this very principle is termed as division. And the other principle which is being implemented and used with great efficacy is unification. Let's understand this principle from India's illustrative efforts. Talking about UPI for a moment. UPI, which by the way is termed as Unified Payment Interface, derived from unification, is the digital method of adding all your accounts into a single mobile application whilst integrating merchant payments and other banking features under one single umbrella. Now, third-party apps like Google Pay, Phone Pay, Paytm all make use of UPI technology for helping the customers transfer the funds, thus creating a competition for the payments application market. But what if everyone in the country tomorrow starts using Google Pay only? Would this create a monopoly for Google Pay in the payment domain? It certainly would. And hence, to curb this monopolistic opportunities which could arise, the government puts a 30% cap on the third-party apps, which restricts them to have more than 30% of all the UPI transactions happening on the platform in the preceding 3 months. This threshold would not allow any payment player to add any more users or process any more transactions on the platform. This move by the government is aimed to preventing a monopolistic trend as well as the payment overload which could lead to potential collapse of the system. Following on the lines of UPI is the ONDC initiative, by which the government aims to improve a unified neutral platform, which in simple terms means that the buyers and the sellers will be able to transact on ONDC irrespective of whether they are on a specific portal such as Amazon's app or Flipkart's app. To put it more simply, if a seller is registered on, let's say, platform X, and I, who is the consumer, is registered on platform Y. So because of the ONDC platform now, which has everyone unified, I, the consumer, will be able to purchase the products from seller via ONDC. This is a bold and a very necessary move from the government, personally from my viewpoint, since this will provide opportunities to small players to sell their goods and to get exposure against the monopolistic players who are actually dominating the e-commerce market in India right now. The Department for Promotions of Industry and Internal Trade specifies that ONDC is aimed at promoting open market which will be independent on any specific platform. But as was in the case with UPI, I strongly believe the ulterior objective here also is to curb the monopolistic behavior which the economic industry has been displaying for so many years now. To portray this with some numbers, in the festive season 2021, 2 firms constituted of 88% of the total e-commerce market share, with the sales of $7.3 billion out of the total $8.3 billion, which clearly represents a monopolistic behavior in the e-commerce industry, where just 2 firms are bringing in majority of the sales share. Once the ONDC platform is launched in full effect, it could, and I'm pretty confident it would, also implement a threshold-based system such as the UPI against these e-commerce players, which would help the small deserving retailers and the new players who fail to find buyers to rise and scale up. This will in turn boost up more competition and end the dark force of monopoly looming right now. See you all in the next video. Keep a mindful approach. Mindfulness signing off.